Former New York City Police Department officer Valerie Cinelli was sentenced to federal prison for her involvement in a shocking murder-for-hire plot targeting her estranged husband and her boyfriend's teenage daughter. The elaborate scheme unfolded in 2019, when Cinelli, then a 12-year veteran of the NYPD, attempted to solicit her boyfriend, John Demilme, to hire a hitman. Her primary target was her estranged husband, Isaiah Carvalho, amidst a bitter divorce and custody battle, with a motive allegedly tied to preventing him from accessing her police pension. Alarmingly, she later added Demilme's 13-year-old daughter to the hit list, reportedly out of sheer jealousy and personal hatred for disrupting her time with Demilme. Cinelli provided $7,000 to Demilme, believing it would be used to pay the supposed hitman, and even suggested tactics such as having the hitman run over the teenage girl near her school. Unbeknownst to Cinelli, her boyfriend, John Demilme, had gone to the FBI and was cooperating with authorities, turning the plot into an intricate sting operation. Federal agents staged Carvalho's death, even sending a staged photo of him appearing dead in his car to Demilme, who was wearing a wire when Cinelli saw the image. Recordings and texts captured Cinelli discussing details of the plot and later, frantically concocting an alibi and instructing Demilme to delete incriminating messages, fearing law enforcement subpoenas. She was arrested in May 2019. After her arrest, Valerie Cinelli was suspended without pay from the NYPD. In April 2021, she pleaded guilty to one count of obstruction of justice, as part of a plea deal where federal prosecutors agreed to drop the more severe murder-for-hire charges, which carried a significantly longer potential sentence. She admitted to destroying 2 cell phones and their contents to impede the grand jury investigation. On October 29, 2021, Valerie Cinelli was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. The judge, while acknowledging her stated remorse, imposed a sentence that was less than the maximum 5 years prosecutors had sought. Cinelli had already served 30 months by the time of her sentencing, and with time off for good behavior, she was eligible for home confinement shortly after, ultimately being released from federal custody in April 2022, after serving approximately 3 years in prison. Her estranged husband, Isaiah Carvalho, expressed ongoing fear for his life, stating he would constantly look over his shoulder following her release. Former Louisville Metro Police Department Detective Kelly Goodlet became a pivotal figure in the federal investigation surrounding the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor, leading to her conviction for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. The core of her criminal conduct centered on the events leading up to the flawed search warrant executed on Breonna Taylor's apartment on March 13, 2020. Goodlet conspired with fellow Detective Joshua James to deliberately include false and misleading information in the affidavit used to secure this no-knock warrant. Specifically, they falsely claimed that a U.S. postal inspector had confirmed a drug suspect was receiving packages at Taylor's address and that the suspect was using her residence, despite knowing these assertions were either untrue or outdated. Goodlet was fully aware that the warrant's execution would occur at night with officers' weapons drawn, significantly escalating the risk to anyone inside. Following Breonna Taylor's death during the execution of this problematic warrant, Goodlet further compounded her actions by engaging in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. She and James fabricated a cover story, even meeting in a garage to align their false narratives, intending to deceive state and federal investigators about the truth behind the falsified affidavit. While the specifics of her immediate physical arrest are not widely publicized, Kelly Goodlet was formally charged by the U.S. Department of Justice in August 2022 as part of a broader federal indictment against 4 LMPD officers connected to the Breonna Taylor case. She resigned from the police department a day prior to the federal charges being announced on August 4, 2022, and subsequently pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy on August 23, 2022. As part of her plea agreement, Goodlet agreed to cooperate with federal investigators, a factor widely anticipated to influence her final sentence. Her sentencing, initially slated for late 2022, experienced delays. As of the latest public information, Kelly Goodlet's sentencing hearing is currently scheduled for April 29, 2025, where she faces a maximum penalty of 5 years in federal prison and a $250,000 fine for her role in the conspiracy. Former Greater Manchester police officer Sarah Demilme was sentenced to prison for causing catastrophic injuries through her dangerous driving while on duty. The tragic incident occurred on Boxing Day 2020, when the then 26-year-old police constable was responding to a Grade 1 domestic disturbance call involving a suspect reportedly armed with a knife. Despite being classified as a basic police driver, meaning she was not authorized to exceed speed limits or engage in high-speed pursuits, Demilme drove her patrol car at alarming speeds, reaching up to 61 miles per hour in a 30 miles per hour zone on wet roads in Stockport. Her reckless actions further included driving the wrong way around a traffic island and overtaking another vehicle, culminating in a devastating collision on Garner's Lane in Adswood. Her police vehicle tragically struck 15-year-old pedestrian Kia Whitehead, who, distracted by another police car passing, had stepped into the road. The impact left Kia with profound and catastrophic brain injuries, resulting in him being in a persistent vegetative state and requiring continuous 24-hour care. The incident immediately triggered a mandatory referral to the Independent Office for Police Conduct, which launched a thorough investigation into the driving of 3 GMP officers involved, with a specific focus on Demilme's conduct. The investigation meticulously gathered evidence, including CCTV footage, body-worn video from officers, and crucial speed data extracted from her police vehicle, all of which documented her dangerous actions. Initially, Demilme informed investigators that she had been traveling at a normal road speed, and subsequently declined to provide further answers regarding her driving. By September 2021, the IOPC concluded its investigation, forwarding a comprehensive file of evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service, which then authorized the charge of causing serious injury by dangerous driving. Following a trial, a jury found Sarah Demilme guilty in April 2023. In May 2023, she was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months in jail and was also disqualified from driving for 15 months. Her appeal against the sentence was ultimately rejected by judges at the Court of Appeal in London in October 2023, who affirmed the original sentence was not excessive given the severity of the offense. In addition to her criminal conviction, she also faced an accelerated misconduct hearing by Greater Manchester Police, which resulted in her dismissal from the force. The devastating impact of her actions on Kia Whitehead and his family has been widely highlighted, with his mother describing him as being like a newborn baby and requiring round-the-clock care. Former New Orleans Police Department officer Antuinette Frank is one of the most infamous cases of a law enforcement official committing heinous crimes, leading to her being the only woman on Louisiana's death row. Her horrific crime spree occurred on March 4th, 1995, at the Kim on Vietnamese restaurant in New Orleans East, where she had previously worked in off-duty security detail. Frank, accompanied by her accomplice and alleged lover, Rogers Lacaze, entered the restaurant after closing, armed with a 9mm pistol she had reportedly obtained illegally from the NOPD evidence room. Inside, they encountered fellow NOPD officer Ronald A. Williams II, who was working security that night, along with siblings Ha and Quang Vu, children of the restaurant owners. Frank coldly executed Officer Williams, then pursued and fatally shot Ha Vu and Quang Vu even as Quang, gravely wounded, struggled for air. Witnesses, including another Vu sibling who hid in a walk-in cooler, later described seeing Frank searching for money after the attacks. It is also believed that Frank may have killed her own father in 1993, with a skull found buried under her house after her arrest, though she has not been tried for that alleged crime. Frank fled the scene with Lacaze, but shockingly returned shortly afterward in a police patrol car, feigning a response to emergency calls. However, the surviving sibling identified her as the killer, leading to her swift arrest at the crime scene. The investigation revealed that Frank had been caught lying on her police application and had failed 2 psychiatric evaluations before being hired by the NOPD in 1993, with a psychiatrist explicitly advising against her hiring. Testimony during her trial also suggested Frank and Lacaze had engaged in robbing motorists while in her squad car prior to the murders. Antuinette Frank was subsequently convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder on September 12, 1995, and formally sentenced to death on October 20, 1995. Her case drew national attention due to the brutality of the crime and the fact that a police officer was involved in such a heinous act, including the murder of a fellow officer. Frank has been incarcerated on death row at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women in St. Gabriel, Louisiana since 1995. While her accomplice, Rogers Lacaze, also received a death sentence, his was later reversed, and he was resentenced to life without parole in 2019. Frank's legal team has continually pursued appeals, arguing issues like ineffective assistance of counsel, her history of severe childhood trauma, which was not presented at trial, and her alleged manipulation by Lacaze. As recently as May 2025, a judge granted Frank a new hearing to challenge her death sentence, a decision the Louisiana Attorney General's office has indicated it will appeal. Former New York City Police Department officer Ivon Wu was sentenced to a lengthy prison term for a violent incident stemming from a love triangle. The tragic event unfolded on October 13, 2021, when an off-duty Wu, then 34 years old, went to the Brooklyn home of her former intimate partner, Jenny Lee. There, she ambushed Lee and Lee's new girlfriend, Jamie Leong. Using her department-issued service weapon, Wu opened fire, killing 24-year-old Jamie Leong and seriously wounding 34-year-old Jenny Lee. Prosecutors stated that Wu, who had been with the NYPD for 5 years, waited for hours outside Lee's home until her ex arrived with her new partner before breaking in and committing the acts. Following the shooting, Ivon Wu remained at the scene and was arrested by responding officers. She reportedly appeared calm and confessed to the shooting. Initially charged with murder and attempted murder, the case garnered significant attention due to her status as a police officer, leading to the New York State Attorney General's office taking over the prosecution. In June 2024, Wu pleaded guilty before acting Kings County Supreme Court Justice Danny Chun to 1 count of manslaughter in the first degree for Jamie Liang's death and 1 count of attempted murder in the second degree for Jenny Lee's injuries. As part of this plea agreement, which spared the victims' families the ordeal of a full trial, she faced a recommended sentence. On August 28, 2024, Ivon Wu was formally sentenced to 22 years for the manslaughter charge and 5 years for the attempted murder charge to run consecutively, totaling 27 years in prison. She also received 5 years of post-release supervision and an order of protection for Jenny Lee. During the sentencing, Jenny Lee spoke of the profound physical and emotional scars left by the attack, while Jamie Liang's father emotionally described Wu as a cold-blooded monster who had stolen his daughter's future. Wu, who had been suspended without pay from the NYPD and was formally fired in June 2024, offered an apology in court, stating her remorse for the pain she had caused. Former Brooklyn Center Police Officer Kim Potter was at the center of a high-profile case involving the fatal shooting of Daunte Wright during a traffic stop. The incident occurred on April 11, 2021, when Potter, a 26-year veteran of the force, and a trainee officer stopped 20-year-old Daunte Wright for expired license tags. During the stop, officers discovered an outstanding warrant for Wright's arrest. As officers attempted to take Wright into custody, he pulled away and tried to re-enter his vehicle. In the ensuing struggle, Potter, who is white, drew her firearm, believing it to be her taser, and fired a single shot, striking and fatally wounding Wright, who was black. Body camera footage captured Potter exclaiming, "Holy shit. I just shot him and I grabbed the wrong fucking gun." Following the highly publicized shooting and subsequent protests, Kim Potter resigned from the Brooklyn Center Police Department on April 13, 2021. She was arrested on April 14, 2021, and initially charged with second-degree manslaughter. Later, the charge was upgraded to include first-degree manslaughter. Her trial garnered national attention, and she was ultimately convicted by a jury on December 23, 2021, of both first-degree and second-degree manslaughter in the death of Daunte Wright. On February 18, 2022, Kim Potter was sentenced to 2 years in prison for Daunte Wright's death. This sentence was a significant downward departure from the state's sentencing guidelines, which called for a presumptive sentence of just over 7 years for first-degree manslaughter. The judge, Regina Chu, cited several mitigating factors for the reduced sentence, including Potter's remorse, her long and unblemished record as an officer, and the fact that the killing was unintentional due to her mistaking her firearm for her taser. The sentencing sparked considerable outrage and disappointment from Daunte Wright's family and activists, who viewed it as too lenient. Under Minnesota law, Potter was expected to serve 2/3 of her sentence, 16 months, in prison, with the remainder on supervised release. She was held in isolated housing at the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Shakopee due to her status as a former police officer. Potter was released from prison on April 24, 2023, after serving 16 months of her sentence. Former Los Angeles Police Department Detective Stephanie Lazarus was convicted of a cold case murder that remained unsolved for over 2 decades, making her one of the rare instances of a police officer being found guilty of such a serious crime. The victim was Sherry Rasmussen, the new wife of Lazarus's former boyfriend, John Rutten. The murder occurred on February 24, 1986, when Rasmussen was found bludgeoned and shot 3 times in the Van Nuys condominium she shared with Rutten. At the time, detectives initially theorized it was a botched burglary, overlooking Lazarus due to her status as a police officer and the belief that the suspects were 2 male robbers. However, Rasmussen's father suspected Lazarus due to her aggressive behavior towards Sherry and her continued obsession with John Rutten after their breakup. Lazarus had even confronted Rasmussen at her workplace, telling her that if she couldn't have John, nobody could. The case remained cold for 23 years until 2009, when cold case detectives revisited the file. Their attention was drawn to Lazarus, who by then had risen through the LAPD ranks to become a detective specializing in art forgeries and thefts. The key breakthrough came from DNA evidence, a bite mark found on Sherry Rasmussen's arm at the original crime scene. DNA technology, which was not available in 1986, allowed investigators to develop a profile from the saliva. To obtain a DNA sample from Lazarus without her knowledge, undercover officers followed her and covertly collected a discarded drink cup and straw from a trash can outside a Costco. The DNA from this sample precisely matched the profile from the bite mark on Rasmussen. Stephanie Lazarus was arrested in 2009 at LAPD headquarters, an event that sent shockwaves through the department. She was charged with first-degree murder. Her trial commenced in early 2012, attracting significant media attention due to the elements of a love triangle, a cold case, and a police officer as the accused killer. Prosecutors argued that Lazarus was consumed by jealousy when Rutten chose to marry Rasmussen over her. On March 8, 2012, a jury found Stephanie Lazarus guilty of first-degree murder. She was subsequently sentenced to 27 years to life in state prison, with the judge adding 2 years for the personal use of a firearm. The conviction was upheld on appeal in 2015. Lazarus, now 64, has since been incarcerated at the California Institution for Women in Corona. Although she initially received a parole recommendation in 2023 after admitting to the crime, which she had previously denied, California Governor Gavin Newsom intervened, and her parole was rescinded in October 2024. She is eligible for another parole hearing in 2028, but her testimony about the attack in previous hearings has been noted as not fully matching the evidence. Former police constable Stephanie Heaps, also known by her married name Stephanie Ramsden, was incarcerated for a range of serious offenses stemming from her corrupt relationships and involvement in organized crime, a case made more egregious by her dual roles as a prison officer and later a police officer in the UK. Heaps' misconduct began while she served as a prison officer at HMP Wymont in Leland from March 2018 to July 2019. During this period, she engaged in an intimate relationship with Leon Leighton Ramsden, a convicted murderer serving a life sentence, a relationship she deliberately failed to declare. She provided Ramsden with illicit mobile phones inside his cell and exchanged sensitive information with him, thereby compromising the integrity of the prison system. After leaving her role as a prison officer, Heaps joined the Greater Manchester Police as a police constable in the Bolton district in July 2019. Astonishingly, she continued her undeclared relationship with Ramsden and her criminal activities, even leveraging her position as a police officer. An investigation by GMP's Anti-Corruption Unit, launched in September 2019 under the supervision of the Independent Office of Police Conduct, meticulously uncovered the full extent of her deceit. Evidence revealed she not only visited Ramsden in prison and communicated with him via legal phones, but also shared confidential police information. In one particularly egregious instance, while on duty, she intentionally failed to arrest a wanted domestic suspect because he was an associate of Ramsden's. Furthermore, Heaps became directly involved in Ramsden's organized crime group, assisting in a conspiracy to commit burglary by providing the address of her former partner, who she believed had cash, to be targeted by Ramsden's associates in St. Helens in November 2019, and participating in a conspiracy to launder money derived from Ramsden's drug dealing. Stephanie Heaps was arrested in January 2020 while arriving at work. She gave a no-comment interview and resigned from the force weeks later. Despite her initial silence, the compelling evidence compiled by police and the Crown Prosecution Service led to her pleading guilty in October 2022 to multiple offenses. 2 counts of misconduct in a public office, one as a prison officer, one as a police officer, conspiracy to commit burglary, conspiracy to launder money, and intentionally encouraging or assisting the commission of an offense by communicating with Ramsden via illegal phones. On July 4, 2024, Stephanie Heaps, now known as Stephanie Ramsden, was sentenced to 4 years and 3 months in prison at Bolton Crown Court. Prosecutors and police officials condemned her brazen disregard for the standards required for both her roles, emphasizing that she had compromised the trusted position she held and should never be trusted to serve the public. She was formally dismissed from policing at an accelerated misconduct hearing in October 2023. Her co-conspirator and husband, Leon Ramsden, received an additional 5 years and 7 months to run concurrently with his existing life sentence for murder. Former police constable Choni Kenny, who joined Greater Manchester Police in 2020 and was assigned to the City of Manchester District, became embroiled in a severe pattern of misconduct between April 2021 and June 2023. This corruption stemmed from her engaging in undeclared intimate relationships with 2 individuals known to be criminals, Josh Whalen and Raheem Motley. Her involvement with Josh Whalen, while he was serving a prison sentence from 2021 to 2023, escalated to a casual relationship. Crucially, Kenny facilitated his continued criminal activities from behind bars by funding and delivering over 20 illegal mobile phones to him across various prisons, including HMP Forest Bank, HMP Risley, and HMP Berwyn. Prison CCTV even captured her visiting Whalen in her police uniform. Furthermore, she leveraged her access to confidential police systems to procure and relay sensitive information to him, including a victim statement related to a violence accusation against Whalen. Recorded conversations with her friends during the investigation suggested her awareness of Whalen's substance dealing operations. Following the end of her relationship with Whalen, Kenny began a physical but casual relationship with Raheem Motley, a former schoolmate who was under police investigation and later extradited from Spain in October 2024. Kenny extended her corrupt practices to Motley, utilizing her police access to provide him with highly sensitive operational information. This included details concerning impending police warrants, such as a firearms raid that was reportedly compromised due to her disclosures, addresses, and even a promise to identify local informants. She also accessed information regarding Motley's family members, who were subjects of police operations. The extensive misconduct came to light through a directed investigation by the Independent Office for Police Conduct executed by GMP's Anti-Corruption Unit. This thorough inquiry involved the meticulous analysis of Kenny's phone records, computer usage, and CCTV footage. Her arrest occurred on June 21, 2023, leading to her immediate suspension from her duties. In court, Kenny, age 27, pleaded guilty to 4 offenses of misconduct in public office and 1 count of conspiracy to commit misconduct with a criminal associate, Raheem Motley. On April 23, 2025, Choni Kenny was sentenced at Liverpool Crown Court to 3 years and 9 months in jail. Prior to her sentencing, Choni Kenny was formally dismissed from the police force without notice on April 1, 2025, following an accelerated misconduct hearing. Criminal activities. Former Birmingham, Alabama. Police Detective Alfredo Fluker was convicted and sentenced for murder in a case described as a love triangle gone wrong. The tragic incident unfolded on April 10, 2020, when Fluker, then 39 years old and a 15-year veteran of the Birmingham Police Department, tracked her romantic partner, fellow detective Mario Theodore White, to Germania Park. There, she discovered him with another woman, Kenesha Nicole Fuller, 43, inside his unmarked police SUV. Enraged by the discovery, Fluker, while off duty, approached the vehicle and opened fire with her department-issued weapon, reportedly firing 15 rounds into the SUV. Kenesha Nicole Fuller was struck multiple times, sustaining fatal injuries to her arm, thigh, and head, and was later pronounced dead at a hospital. Mario Theodore White, though present, was uninjured but later resigned from the department. Investigators quickly determined Fluker was the shooter, and she was arrested the following morning, April 11th, 2020, and taken into custody at her home in West Birmingham. She was initially charged with capital murder and attempted murder. The case proceeded to trial, where prosecutors argued that Fluker's actions were intentional, cold, calculated, and exact, claiming she intentionally emptied her service weapon into the vehicle. Her defense, however, contended that she acted in the heat of passion upon seeing White and Fuller in a compromising position, arguing that her actions constituted manslaughter rather than capital murder, and that she didn't intend to kill anyone, instead claiming she thought she was shooting high. Fluker's first trial in September 2022 ended in a mistrial due to a juror's inappropriate conduct. At her retrial in November 2022, a jury again found Alfredo Fluker guilty of capital murder for the death of Kenesha Nicole Fuller and attempted murder of Mario Theodore White. On February 6, 2023, Alfredo Fluker, then 42, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence was affirmed by the Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals on November 8, 2024. Fuller's mother expressed satisfaction with the verdict, emphasizing that no matter what your title is, you just can't go around killing people. Fluker remains incarcerated at the Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women in Wetumpka, Alabama.